'Twas the time of the Inquisition, and I had been sentenced to death. Upon receiving my sentence, I lost consciousness. When I awoke, I faced complete darkness. I was confused because I knew that the usual fate of the Inquisition victims was a public auto da fe, an execution normally taking the form of a hanging. I was afraid I had been locked in a tomb, but I got up and walked a few paces. This mobility led me to surmise that I was not in a tomb, but perhaps in one of the dungeons at Toledo, an infamous Inquisition prison. I decided to explore, ripping a piece of the hem from my robe. I placed it against the wall so that I could count the number of steps required to walk the perimeter of the cell. However, I soon stumbled and fell to the ground, where I fell asleep. Upon waking, I found offerings of water and bread, which I eagerly consumed. I then resumed my exploration of the prison, determining it to be roughly 100 paces around. I decided to walk across the room. As I crossed through, the hem that I ripped earlier tangled around my feet and tripped me. Hitting the floor, I realized that although most of my body had fallen on solid ground, my face dangled over an abyss. To my dismay, I concluded that in the center of the prison there existed a circular pit. To estimate its depth, I broke a stone off the wall of the pit and threw it in, timing its descent. The pit, I believed, was quite deep, with water at the bottom. Reflecting upon my proximity to the pit, I explained its function as a punishment of surprise, infamously popular with the Inquisitors. I fell asleep again and awoke to more water and bread. After drinking, I immediately fell asleep again, and imagined that the water must have been drugged. When I awoke the next time, I found the prison dimly lit. I had overestimated its size, most likely having duplicated my steps during my exploration. I then discovered that I was bound to a wooden board by a long strap wrapped around my body. My captors offered me flavorful meat in a dish, but no more water. When I looked up, I noticed that the figure of time had been painted upon the ceiling. Time, however, had been made into a machine, specifically a pendulum, which appeared to be swinging back and forth. I looked away from the ceiling, though I noticed rats coming out of the pit and swarming around my food. When I returned my focus to the ceiling, I discovered that the pendulum was constructed like a scythe, and was making a razor-sharp crescent in its descent towards me. Its progress, however, was maddeningly slow, and in a trajectory directly over my heart. Even though I recognized how dire the situation was, I remained hopeful. When the pendulum got very close to me, I had a flash of insight. I rubbed the food from my plate all over the strap that was restraining my mobility. Drawn by the food, the rats climbed on top of me and chewed through the strap. As the pendulum neared my heart, I broke through the strap and escaped from the pendulum's swing. When I got up, the pendulum retracted to the ceiling, and I concluded that people must be watching my every move. The walls of the prison then heated up and began moving in toward the pit. I realized that the enclosing walls would force me into the pit, an escape that would also mean my death. When there remained not even an inch foothold for me, the walls suddenly retracted and cooled down. Just then, the French General LaSalle and his army burst into the cell, having taken over the prison, and I was free.